good afternoon, everyone. Just want to really, again, just reiterate and welcome our guests to this session. I would just like to just say hello to everyone and to thank you very much for scheduling the time to join this Salcam session, where Ambassador Gurjit Singh will be discussing more about his book, The Harambee Factor, the India-Africa Economic and Development Partnership. He is joined by two distinguished guests, Honorable Minister Ahmed Shidi, who is the Ethiopian Minister of Finance, and Chairman Mr. Erastus Mwencha, who is the Chairperson of Equity Bank Kenya. And I'll just go ahead and make a very quick introduction about the book that will be discussed during this session. And then after that, I'll leave the floor to Ambassador to carry on. So the book that will be discussed during this session is called the Harambee Factor, the India-Africa Economic and Development Partnerships, which was commissioned by the Institute of Current World Affairs and was published recently by Macmillan. It aims to survey the post-2000 developments between India and Africa, particularly through the India-Africa summits, in which Ambassador Singh was directly involved in the first two. It has two surveys, one on the Indian businessmen engaged in within Africa, and the other on gauging the response of cross-section of African interlocutors to India as a development partner. It has an immense amount of unpublished information that gives an assessment of future ideas for both India and Africa in terms of development partnership, and it touches on various sections, including various topics, including the opportunity that is Africa, India's evolving approach to Africa, engaging through civil society, sharing the knowledge in terms of diversity and partnership, trade expansions as an enhancer of India-Africa relations, building a sectorial partnership within Africa, among others. So without further ado, I'll welcome Ambassador Singh to take over for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molehi. It is indeed a great honor for me to be accompanied by my old friends, the Honorable Finance Minister of Ethiopia, Mr. Ahmed Shide, and the Honorable Erastus Mwencha, Chairman of many things, all African, always doing good. Very happy to be with you. Of the 37 years that I served in the Foreign Service, 10 were in Africa. And most interestingly, they were divided between Kenya and Ethiopia. So I'm very happy that you are both with me today because these were the countries in which I think I learned about Africa. Why did I write this book? I wrote this book because I thought there was not enough current writing about what India and Africa were doing together. It was not just about India in Africa. It was about the partnership and how we evolved it, how we worked with many countries. What I tried to say in the book is that India is a partner of Africa. It is not a donor. It looks for a partnership of equality. And what India has done is to build African capacities, listen to African priorities, do what India could do best with Africa as a friend. I don't think India had an agenda beyond that. And whether it was the Imperial Harar Academy in Ethiopia in 1956 onwards, India has always tried to build African capacities. This book is a tribute to the India-Africa partnership and tries to fill the gap of knowledge and academic work where we do not have much information on such things. We are trying to live a relationship, but this book tries to recount the relationship. And as Mr. Molehi mentioned, it has only 12 chapters, but they are very intense chapters dealing with the evolution of India's policy, how Africa is an opportunity, and how we need to diversify our approaches. With those few words, I would now like to invite the Honorable Finance Minister, Mr. Ahmed Shide, to make his opening remarks.
Thank you, Ambassador. I thank you, Ambassador Gurjit Singh, for undertaking this major book on India-Africa Economic and Development Cooperation. India has been a long-standing partner of Ethiopia and Africa. I fully much agree your characterization in terms of partnership. We deeply value our relationship with India. I recall the role played by Ambassador Singh personally in this effort when he was ambassador to Ethiopia. By then also I was serving as the State Minister of Development Cooperation, dealing with the ambassador directly and Exim Bank of China and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of India. India. During that period, Indian Development Cooperation, Indian investment, and Indian trade bloomed with Ethiopia and with Africa. For that, we remain very grateful and thankful for his determined effort and leadership. And I can recall that he was very charismatic in facilitating our engagement with Indian officials and businesses and financial institutions, which has paved the way for significant development of our partnership. A significant part of that period was that India offered nearly $1 billion in concessional credit to Ethiopia for the development of its sugar plants, it is rural electric transmission lines, and also the likes. These created major assets in Ethiopia and helped us to build our infrastructure and supported us in our development effort. These were very important steps taken during the period of Ambassador Singh, and he was very dynamic in facilitating and bringing both sides together in the partnerships. And also, I very much value in terms of capacity building and early education sector development in Ethiopia. India played a very significant role, and lecturers and the teachers in various universities, in various high schools, has played a significant role, still playing a role in higher education, partly. So I fully share on the concept of partnerships and capacity building, which is very, very important for win-win and long-lasting development partnerships. And the investment surge during that period also was very high. A lot of Indian companies has came to Ethiopia and invested with significant amount of investment in SMEs, in the middle-level companies as well. Therefore, Ambassador has really played significant role. In his also ambassadorship to African Union, he has been engaged dynamically in facilitating continental-wide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your most gracious remarks, Minister. I now turn to my dear friend, Mr. Mavencha. Sir, I would like you to make your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Singh. First, I'd like to say how much I'm delighted to share this platform with my good friend, a man of great intellect and deep insights on economic issues, His Excellency Ahmed Shide. I got to know him when he was a state minister, and where he was presenting the economic strategy. And since then, of course, as you know, today as finance minister, and somebody I've continued to follow with great admiration. Equally, I must say, it is a great pleasure for me to be in this panel to introduce my good brother, Ambassador Gulsheet Singh, who I have known since 2008 when I joined the African Union as deputy chairperson. It is during this time that we developed our enduring relationship. And of course, he was the shepherd of the summit that was held in 2008 in India, which I was also privileged to attend. And so, since that time, we developed strong bonds of relationship that characterize our relationship between India and Africa. The book, Harambee Factor, for me, I was very much attracted to the title, Harambee, because coming from Kenya, the name Harambee means pulling together. And you couldn't have found a better title for this book, because India and Africa have been pulling together for centuries. This book, of course, will enrich the literature on India-Africa relationship, and this seminarial work should be useful to policymakers, academia, and above all, practitioners. As you heard, this book has been financed by the private sector. The relationship between India and Africa dates back several centuries. The presence of Indians in East Africa is documented in as early as the 60 AD. Political connections during the colonial era was linked to Mahatma Gandhi, who began his political career in South Africa, became the leader of colonized and established Indian Natal Congress in 1894. And it is part of what Mahatma Gandhi did in his 21 years in South Africa that inspired some of the movements like the African National Congress. And of course, we see major inflow of Indians to East Africa coast and also in Southern Africa, working in the plantations, but also in the building of the rail between Mombasa and Uganda. Today, Africa is host to more than 3 million Indians, people of Indian origin in Africa. And in Kenya, where I come from, the people of Indian origin now have been recognized as one of the 42 ethnic communities. No wonder the bond of relationship has continued to go from strength to strength. Trade has been tremendous, has also seen tremendous growth, especially since the year 2000, and more so through the work that has been done through the Africa-India Summit. Some of the tools that has helped to enhance this trade is because of the duty-free, quarter-free, duty-free trade preferences that was announced by India during the India-Africa Summit of 2008, and in which Ambassador Gurchid played a key role. One of the things that you notice, especially in the trade between India and Africa, is the complementarity of the two economies. If you look at trade that is taking place, India exports a more higher level of manufactured goods like pharmaceuticals and also processed fertilizers and petroleum products, whereas Africa exports petroleum and other commodity-based products. It is in this complementarity that India is gaining encouragement to be a major investor in Africa. Today, India's investment in Africa stands cumulatively at over 150 billion US dollars, and the capacity to expand this is even bigger. And as we speak, India is the third largest trading partner with Africa, coming after China and the United States. And so this underscores the work that has been done under the foundation and stewardship of Ambassador Gurchid Singh, and also those that have followed his footsteps thereafter. And it is therefore for me a great pleasure to be able to be part of this transformation together with Ambassador, and also to read this wonderful book, which I am proud to recommend to our scholars and practitioners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mavencha, for your very warm words. And I shall take it from where you ended. And Honorable Minister also spoke about investment, and you also spoke about investment. Honorable Minister, I have a whole chapter on investment in Africa by India, which is often not easily recognized. So I want to ask you to talk about investment as a development tool and a support to countries like Ethiopia.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ethiopia and Africa both require a large and a quality investment for the development. This includes infrastructure for manufacturing and services, as well as in different economic sectors. Investment is needed, and Ethiopia offers significant opportunity for investment. Now our population is more than 110 million, with the recently introduced homegrown economic reform program, with the massive public investment we did in the past, and a lot of investment in our education and the skill sector. The policies and regulatory environment which has been reformulated recently has opened space for more private sector investment into the country. And we have liberalized our telecom sector to attract significant investment. We are happy to get a well-refined telecom operator from Kenya as a consortium with other companies, Safaricom. So we are opening also logistics sector for international investment, and we are doing a lot of reform in terms of ease of doing business. And Ethiopia has significant potential for agricultural investment, for manufacturing, for mining sector investment, as well as also for tourism-related investment. And we are diversifying our source of growth. And we are also working to restructuring our debt. So with our creditors, we are working, including India, China, and other creditors, we are working in the context of what you call the common framework, which has been championed by G20 finance ministers and IMF and World Bank as well. So with this reform, I am confident that we can able to attract money investment because we are a big market destination with now a GDP which is already crossed $100 billion US. Still very positive growth despite the challenge domestically as well as Corona. We have a strong positive growth. Our export sector is increasing. So we are also addressing the macro imbalance in terms of addressing foreign exchange management regime and all those issues. And with additional reform, which we are going to introduce in the banking sector, in the financial sector, and we believe that Ethiopia will continue to be a major source of attracting investment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You make it sound so good that things are looking up, and I'm very happy to hear that. When I came to Ethiopia, bringing small and medium enterprises was a challenge, and that is the challenge we overcame, which you mentioned. And I must say that I have analyzed this in great detail in the book, and I've also looked at Indian investors in Kenya and in many African countries and how they are looked at, what kind of work they did, why did they choose those countries. I'm happy to say that in the survey of Indian entrepreneurs, they say that East Africa is their preferred destination for investment in 2021. So I think this is a very positive sign that they will be responding to you. Mr. Mavencha, I now turn to you. And when I first met you once, you were the Secretary General of COMESA. And what you did in COMESA today has happened in Africa when the Africa Continental FTA is now in place. I ask you, and you mentioned that India is among the top 3 trading partners of Africa. How will the Africa Continental FTA help to develop trade with countries like India, which is not based on concessions, but based on complementarity?
India and Africa have more or less similar population. India with a population of 1.3 billion people and Africa 1.3. And the GDP of India and Africa is more or less the same. India being 2.6 trillion and Africa $2.6 trillion. But if you look at the nature of trade, it has tended to show India operating at a higher level, meaning India has acquired a higher level of technology. But the question you ask is about the Continental Free Trade Area. The Continental Free Trade Area, of course, brings in not only this big population, but also the buying power of more than $3 trillion US. These should remove some of the limiting factors, particularly the small segmented markets. Many African markets are only less than 10 billion, unlike Ethiopia, which has got 10 million people, unlike Ethiopia, which has got over 100 million people. And because of that, there is always a challenge of economies of scale. And that's why India, if you look at India's development, because India with a population of 1.23 operates as a single economy, unlike Africa. And so with Africa now expanding its market, this should spur investment. You did mention in your introductory remarks about the need for investment. If you look at the limiting factor, it is indeed that access to credit. It is estimated that in Africa there is this financing gap of almost 120 billion. And therefore, having finance instruments, which we now have through the banks of India and through some of the Africa banks. And I'm happy to say here, one of the things we created when we were in COMESA is the PTA Bank or the COMESA Bank, which has got lines of credit and which I know has been able to utilize, and which shows that when you have financial instruments, yes, economic activity does take place. And one area that we have seen this was even during the pandemic, COVID, because India was able to start manufacturing the vaccine. And although the exports became a challenge, but India did support Africa. And this is one of the areas we would like to see India extend its technology for Africa to also start working, especially as we work together with India under the WTO to get comparison licenses for AIDS, for manufacture of AIDS vaccine, drugs. But we should do the same now so that Africa can also acquire the technology for vaccine with India's support.
Thank you for mentioning that. You know, in my book, I have brought out that how HIV in Africa and meningitis were two diseases which were actually dealt with thanks to Indian technology coming to Africa in a shared resource. Similarly, I am a votary for Indian companies manufacturing in Africa the vaccine against COVID. That will really help to deal with important issues like this. So you mentioned the PTA Bank, which is now called the TDB, the Trade and Development Bank. And the line of credit that India has offered is actually a non-sovereign guarantee line. It is not guaranteed. So I ask now to Mr. Ahmed Shide, you know, we are at this event called Sankalp Africa. We promote impact investment through private initiative and funds, which will support the attainment of SDGs. We also like to use ESG funds. Now, these are non-sovereign funds. How do you see their relevance to Ethiopia in particular? And how do you think they will be facilitated? Because they are not governmental funds. They come in as private funds, which are coming more like equity and some debt to support the achievement of your national development goals.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. I think first, before this addressing this question, I would like to appreciate the importance of the lines of credit, which is concessional to create significant assets in manufacturing, in infrastructure. We're very much instrumental in building the capacity of production in our economies. And I would like to acknowledge that part. And you rightly said in your books that this was very important. The most important issue is it has to be concessional and it has to be used in a development generating investment, which is very important to create production capacity. That's very fundamental. On your impact investment and funds related to that, this is absolutely inconsistent with our reform now. That we are rebalancing the role of the state from massive public investment to facilitating more private-led growth through attracting significant private sector investment. That's why we are privatizing state-owned enterprises. That's why we are doing regulatory reform to attract more businesses into the economy. That's why we are diversifying our source of investment. That's why we are investing in key infrastructure and also in human skill development. All are very much important. So within our current reform strategy, more private sector-led financing modalities are very much preferred, and they are very much welcome.
Thank you so much, Minister, for the warmth of your welcome to impact investing. I'm sure we will take that forward, and that is one of the recommendations of the Harambee Factor. I turn to you again, my brother, Mr. Mavencha. You and I were involved when the first India-Africa Forum Summit was organized in 2008. May I request you to look back on those days and tell us, why do you think India was one of your prime targets? Because the evolution of the summits is discussed in great detail in my book, because I was part of the establishment process. But I would love to hear from you. What did you think at that time? Why you were engaging India?
Thank you. When that summit was held, and if you look back even to the early 90s, trade between India and Africa was just under $2 billion. But since the hosting of that summit, trade has grown from $7.2 billion. Today, it is close to 60 billion, making India the third largest trading partner with Africa. And as I said early on, you can directly link the work that has been done through those summits that has highlighted the relationship between India and Africa, but also put in some instruments, financing, the tariffs, the preferences, but also encouraging trade flow between India and Africa. And India has also contributed a lot, particularly to Africa's education. As we speak, there are over 25,000 African students in India studying various colleges. This has also brought India closer to Africa, because cumulatively, over 1 million Africans have benefited from education in India. These have also helped strengthen the bond, and with this person-to-person contact, plus the large Indian community of people of Indian origin in Africa, has helped to bring this closer home. So the summit has proven to be a success factor, and indeed the work that you did, I remember when we were working through the Ministerial Council to the summit to make sure that we can get substance on the ground, it has stood the test of time.
Indeed. Thank you so much for reviving those warm memories. I remember those days, heady days, you know. It was like a new revelation that India and Africa, brothers for long, were becoming a 21st century partners. And this partnership was benign. It added so many new dimensions that I think many other people were a bit stunned that India and Africa were now doing so much. And important part is that we always encourage private enterprise, education, and the civil society organizations. I used to often say that the best resources of Africa don't lie under its ground, they live on it. And that human resource, I think, still is the biggest asset of Africa, which India would like to continue to work. Honorable Minister, in conclusion, I would draw your attention to the suggestions in my book that for the future, we should, in a post-pandemic world, look to do more on health, on pharmaceuticals, on infrastructure, on agriculture, and on impact investing. I would like to understand from you, where do you see this going, and how does the problems which afflict Africa in the post-pandemic period, particularly on financing, on guarantees, the cost of finance, how can all that be handled better?
Thank you very much. I think all the sectors you mentioned are important, even currently. The health sector, pharmaceuticals, agricultural cooperation, infrastructure and startups, and the venture capitals are all important. In addition to that, I think digital economy is very much important. The digital development, we have now identified digital economy as a source of growth. and along with telecom liberalization and telecom sector reform, and our investment in IT-related infrastructure. So we need to work on digital economic development because we need to automate production, training, government services. All are very much important. This will create millions of jobs, and that's also very much important. I think we need to attract concessional finance and blend it with private sector finance. That will make the terms and conditions of financing and more relevant to various projects in Africa, whether it is private sector investment or government-related infrastructure projects. I thank you.
Thank you so much. In fact, I'm very happy to hear this from you, Honorable Minister, because in my book, I have proposed that India should set up a revolving fund which will allow consulting companies to help African countries with like a project preparation facility.
That's very important.
And create bankable projects. And the second thing I have proposed is that there should be another revolving fund to support lines of credit to banks in Africa so that they may reduce the cost of local financing to investors. And I hope that these suggestions will someday be accepted and be used.
We can follow up on this one, and it's a very good suggestion, and I welcome it.
Thank you. I now go for my last remarks to Mr. Mavencha. Sir, I want to understand from you that we are at Sankalp Africa, which supports impact investment. Now, among the many hats you wear is also the chairman of the Equity Bank and the chairman of the Africa Capacity Building Foundation. I want to understand from you, sir, how do you see impact investment, non-sovereign funds coming in and helping Africa to build its capacities? And can African institutions like your bank also contribute to such ESG funding?
Thank you. First, I would like to thank the Honourable Minister for highlighting one of the key factors, particularly on this impact financing. And to that, I thought I would just thank you for the efforts you put in trying to get India to join the Trade and Development Bank as a shareholder, because India is one major, our trading partner that is not a member of the Trade and Development Bank. And with that, we can be able to also give the bank bigger capacity because it has the local knowledge, and leverage on that and get more funds so that you can invest in Africa. As you say, yes, I do chair the largest bank in Kenya now, Equity Bank, with a total capitalization of over $13 billion US. And this bank has one regional. We are operating in 7 African countries, and we are hoping, and I was so happy to hear the Honourable Minister say that the next sector that Ethiopia is looking at is liberalizing finance. And we can tell you, waiting on the wings, and we'll be the first to bring it back to Ethiopia.
Welcome. You're welcome.
But having said that, I must say that when you talk of impact investment, this is the way to go. The minister has already said that now we move away. The state has done a lot in terms of infrastructure-led development. And you have seen the growth that Ethiopia has enjoyed because the state has put in place infrastructure. Kenya here, where I see the same thing. The next phase is private sector, and there is no better place. I've seen it from the bank, because now for us to support sectors like education, health, agriculture, we have to have impact investment funds, and the private sector has to play the role. And India has also that advantage of having small-scale industries, which are suited particularly for small communities where they can be able to manufacture goods for domestic consumption, but with aggregate, you can also export. And so, yes, financing is key. As I said early on, we have a financing gap of over 120 billion for investment in trade financing. And so these are some of the areas that I think stand out, and we look forward to strengthening this cooperation between India and Africa.
Thank you so very much, my dear friends. You know, the spirit of Harambee, I think, is very evident. And I can assure you that with your kind of ideas, we can take this forward to build the India-Africa relationship, even at the level of the private sector, the impact investor, and the like. And I'm sure this message is very clearly going to be heard at the Sankalp Africa Summit, where that is why we discussed the Harambee factor today at the Sankalp Africa Summit. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much,
and
Ambassador.
your
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Namaste.